I will say this as often as I possibly can on this channel because it's like a guiding principle. And that is the greatest resource we have in our life as people, not even just as creatives, is time. Money, it comes and it goes, it's fluid, but time is like a one-way street, and when it's spent, it's spent. When I have a project that requires an investment of my time and of my money, the money portion gets figured out very quickly, but the time portion takes a little longer to figure out. Now, I've been working on this project that's centered around the northern plains of the US, and I'm going back there at the end of next week to continue working on this project. And when I booked my flights and my car and my different reservations and lodging, I did all that in an afternoon. But the time that I've spent prepping for this trip and how I'm going to spend my time there is way more than just an afternoon. In the same way that they say it costs money to make money, it costs time to use time most efficiently and wisely. And that's why today I want to share with you how I plan my trips and what I give my time to, how I make the most of my time, and the tools that I use on the front end to ensure that my time is well spent. And before we get going, if this is your first time here, my name is Dave. I'm a photographer and videographer from the Bay Area of California. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. I post 2 videos a week unless something goes horribly wrong. And if this is not your first time here, you'll notice this little guy on me here. I got this to use outdoors, but because I'm gonna be doing some of this and some of this, I have found in the past that when I have a microphone here, it changes depending upon the direction I look. So we're trying this today. Drop a comment below and let me know if this is working out. I hate the way it looks. I'm not into this at all, but I do think it's a better experience probably for you. And before you turn the video off thinking, I already know this stuff, I'm just gonna show you how I use Google Maps to make the most of my time and planning. This project that I'm working on, I mentioned it's in the plains. Let me show you what I mean. This area from southern Wyoming into western Nebraska and the west side of the Dakotas, east side of Montana, this is all the northern plains. My project specifically focuses on this area of Wyoming, Nebraska, and South Dakota, maybe parts of Montana as well. I'm gonna share more about this project at a much later date. But I flew into Denver, I drove up to Cheyenne, and I spent the first part of this project operating within basically like this parameter. Here's Cheyenne on the south. On the east side, it was Kimball, up through Scotts Bluff, towards Harrison, over towards Orrin, and back down to Cheyenne. So that was the main part of where I was working, was within this like square here. I also extended it over towards Laramie and Rock River and Medicine Bow, but for today, we'll just keep it in this square. Now I'm looking for some very specific type of places, and Google Maps helps me do some work on the front end because this is a lot of miles to cover within that square and all the little towns in the middle. I don't want to waste my time going to places that aren't going to give me the best end result. So I'm going to give you a quick example of something I did. Now remember, I mentioned I'm home basing out of Cheyenne on this last trip. If you look at Highway 80, there's also like the old Highway 80, which is called the Lincoln Highway. And it takes me into Nebraska where I can get on these like back roads and small highways to go through some other towns. But since I'm going this way anyway, I start to notice, you know, these little towns here like Hillsdale, Burns, Egbert. So what I'll typically do is I will use this view to identify small towns because let's just face it, it's hard to see things when you're on satellite view. The words don't pop. So I use this view to identify small towns like Egbert. I'll zoom in and I'll see how many structures are there, and if this place looks like there might be something to it, then I'll switch over to satellite view and look around. So I'm not gonna go into this town right now, though I did stop there. I wanna show you how this worked out for me in a town called Pine Bluffs. This town is a little bit bigger. It's definitely not like a dead ghost town like some of the other towns that I went to are. There's definitely life and activity here, but this is where I start to see the green Highway 80, the old Lincoln Highway. So when I got over here, I'm using the satellite view to look specifically for like 2 things. One, things that don't belong, and 2, a cluster of things that look messy. So for instance, I saw this cluster here. So I was like, what is this? So I took the little street view guy, dropped him right in front of it, spun around and saw a 1924 place called Pete's Service with a whole bunch of vintage and old rusted gas pumps. I'm asking now, will this fit my project that I'm doing? And you see how easy it was to find this just looking for, on Google Maps, looking for like a cluster? And then I just start asking myself, okay, do I see anything else? And I'm like, okay, I see a bunch of junk over here. And when you see something in the plains, like a boat, when there is in fact no water around, that to me is gonna be an interesting thing. And I also see this is on the state line. So I drop the little guy on the Lincoln Highway and see a train, but then I turn around and I found this old, interesting service station. I don't know what year this thing is from, but the way the lights are made, as well as the pumps being green. This is right on the border. It looks like half the gas stations on Nebraska, half of it's in Wyoming. I thought this place was super cool. There's another really important thing to do when you're using Google Maps, and that is to look at the image capture date. So if you look down here, this image was captured in 2021. But if I go just down the street a little bit, just by a few clicks, I'm now in 2007. Which is a horrible photo, and you can see that this place is really crowded with trucks and things being stored there. Now I hit another image, and it's from 2024, and it was just last month. So that helps me know like what to expect. If I would have just seen the 2007 image, I probably would have considered bypassing this, but then I see the 2024 image, and I'm like, it's empty. Like there's nothing there. It's just the gas station. But do you see how one click can make a huge difference? Now I'm back in 2021. And then funny enough, the 2024 image disappears while I'm scrolling. I don't know if that's a bug or intentional, but I'll drop the little guy a few times and look around a few times just to make sure what I'm seeing is the most accurate thing possible. I take note of that little town and I keep going on my route. And I start to look at every little town that's gonna be along the path that I'm going in. And this is for like a photography road trip where I'm looking for some very specific styles of buildings and places. And again, more on this project at a later date. But I spent hours wandering around Google Maps so that while I was gone, I made the most of my time. And the hours I spent on Google Maps, they do cost me something. That's time I'm not getting back, but I was able to do that while I'm sitting in the living room, the kids are playing on the floor, or the family's watching something, or my wife's cooking, and I'm still being able to be part of the family time, just kind of scrolling and making notes. Otherwise, I could have flown out there, got on the road, and just been surprised at what I'd find, and that's fun and all, but for a project where you do have limited time and resources, it just makes way more sense to go in there with a plan, especially a plan with some flexibility where like I'm gonna try to find some things, I know where I'm going, and then you get surprised along the way by some other things, and I have plenty of those from that time out there as well. So that big Google Map tip is yes, scroll for what you're looking for, but then use Street View to try to make sure you're looking at the most accurate and most modern date possible. If the most recent date is like 10 years ago, you really don't know what to expect, and that's okay, you can still show up, but you show up not knowing what to expect, whereas like a 2024 image will give you a pretty accurate idea of what to expect when you get there. Google Maps is crazy important for me on all of the trips that I plan. If you have any questions or any tools that you're using that the community might find beneficial, be sure to drop them in comments below. I take time to read and respond to every comment, so I can't wait to hear from you. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, be sure to like it, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.